Sri Aurobindo has been telling us about how life has emerged from matter. First, in very, very simple life forms. Forms so simple that perhaps we wouldn't even recognize them as living creatures. And he says, it seemed as if it wasn't worth those little beings existing at all. Only King Ashwapati, with his inner sight, sees that this is a very important stage in the vast work of divine evolution. And after those very, very tiny and simple and crude-looking creatures, more complicated creatures come, what he calls the animal creation. So reptiles and birds and fish, and he looks back into the past, the time when there were dinosaurs and the first insects, all these development of life, physical life. And we human beings also, we are part of this animal creation. And long, long ago, there were beings who looked more or less human, but they were not human in their consciousness. And it is those beings that he's describing now. How they banded together, fenced themselves round by walls because they felt the whole universe was an enemy to them, that they had to defend and protect themselves. But then they too behaved in a very primitive way. So I'm going to read that now.
How would you define human consciousness?
Well, he says that they don't have a human consciousness. The mind is not fully developed, no? Yes. Well, if I can find the line. Beings were there who wore a human form. This is on page 143. Absorbed, they lived in the passion of the scene. They don't really think about the past and the future. It's more like an animal consciousness that's only just aware of the moment and only aware of what is good or bad for it. There's no wider considerations. So in that sense, their consciousness is still an animal consciousness. So I'm reading now on the next page. What was it, 144? Line 442. Where he's speaking about people beginning to live in groups. In walls of stone fenced round, they worked and warred. Did by a banded selfishness a small good, or wrought a dreadful wrong and cruel pain on sentient lives, and thought they did no ill. Ardent from the sack of happy, peaceful homes, and gorged with slaughter, plunder, rape, and fire, they made of human selves their helpless prey. A drove of captives led to lifelong woe, or torture a spectacle made and holiday, mocking or thrilled by their torn victims' pangs. Admiring themselves as titans and as gods, proudly they sang their high and glorious deeds and praised their victory and their splendid force. An animal in the instinctive herd, pushed by life impulses, forced by common needs, each in his own kind saw his ego's glass. All served the aim and action of the pack. Those like himself, by blood or custom, kin, to him were parts of his life, his adjunct selves, his personal nebulas, constituent stars, satellite companions of his solar eye. A master of his life's environment, a leader of a huddled human mass, herding for safety on a dangerous earth, he gathered them round him as if minor powers to make a common front against the world. Or, weak and soul on an indifferent earth, as a fortress for his undefended heart, or else to heal his body's loneliness. In others than his kind, he sensed a foe, an alien, unlike force to shun and fear, a stranger and adversary to hate and slay. Or he lived as lives the solitary brute. At war with all, he bore his single fate. Absorbed in the present act, the fleeting days, none thought to look beyond the hour's gains, or dreamed to make this earth a fairer world, or felt some touch divine surprise his heart. You will read, Suresh?
In walls of stone fenced round their work and war, did by a banded selfishness of small good, or not a dreadful wrong and cruel pain on sentient lives. And thought they did no good.
Yes. So they are living together, protected by stone walls. Historians, archaeologists, they find some remnants of those stone walls. Perhaps they had thatched roofs held up by sticks. Those we don't find. But the remains of the stone walls, very, very ancient stone walls, you can see in various parts of the earth. People started living like that. Or they lived in caves. If they found a cave, then they didn't need to build walls, no? So they're fenced round by these walls of stone, and they're inside the ring of stone. they work, and they warred. They were fighting amongst themselves and with their neighbors. War seems to be something rooted very early in human history, and perhaps from the animal time. He says, by a banded selfishness. That is, they join together to do something that they all think is a good idea. It may be only a very small good. And sometimes they band together to they wrought a dreadful wrong and cruel pain on other creatures, sentient creatures, creatures with feelings like themselves, but they harm and hurt, torture those people, and they don't think at all that they're doing anything wrong. Just like the cat, when she plays with the mouse, she doesn't at all think that she's being cruel or wicked. No? Only we think, oh, how can she be like that? So they thought they did no ill, that they were not doing anything wrong, even when they are harming other creatures like themselves, or other on animals or anything like that. Dawn.
Ademd from the sack of happy, peaceful homes, engorged with slaughter, plunder, rape, and fire. They made of human cells their helpless prey. The drove of captives led to lifelong woe, or torture a spectacle made and holiday. Mocking or thrilled by their torn victims' pangs, admiring themselves as titans and as gods, proudly they sang their high and glorious deeds and praised their victory and their splendid thoughts.
So we can imagine this picture from long ago, and perhaps it still happens, these kinds of things, in certain parts of the world. A group of people get all excited, ardent, burning with enthusiasm, because they have sacked, they have destroyed the happy, peaceful homes of their neighbors, or the people in the next village or the next valley. They gorge themselves. It means eating so much you can't eat anymore. When you're completely full, they are full of the sensations of slaughter, of killing, of plunder, of stealing the belongings of other people, rape, stealing the women, and fire, setting the houses on fire. They do that when they band together. Perhaps one person will not normally do it, but when they get banded together and all excited, then they go and do these dreadful things. No? They make of human selves, other human beings, their helpless prey. Prey, it's the food of the predator, the lion or the tiger. Prey, eagles, the prey of the eagles. So human beings are made the food of other human beings. So when they have destroyed the village and burnt down the houses, they herd all the people together, or perhaps only the women and children. Maybe they've killed the men. They bring them together as if they are animals, as if they are cows or sheep, They drive them, a drove. The shepherd has a drove of sheep. A drove of captives led to lifelong woe. They will make those people into their slaves, and as long as they live, they will be suffering. Or they may kill them straight away, not quickly, but through torture. They will may turn it into a kind of festival and enjoy the spectacle of people suffering. Then they will laugh that, oh, he's screaming, that fellow, no? Or they will feel excited by it. No? Those of the pangs, the pain suffered by those people that they are tearing apart. And they think that they themselves are very admirable, powerful people. They admire themselves as titans, as very powerful beings, and as gods. So proudly they're singing about all the wonderful things they have done, their high and glorious deeds. And they praise their own victory and their splendid force, how strong and powerful they are.
Shraddhavan,
Yes.
may I ask some reflection from your side about the next? If it was all so terrible in the world or in the first stage, is it not a little bit spoiled that we are talking about what we are talking about now?
I think Sri Aurobindo, what he's trying to do is to evoke for us things that were normal in an earlier time, which we think are not fully human, such kinds of behavior. And that now, of course, such things still happen, but we find them shocking and wrong. But these beings in the beginning, they didn't feel like that at all. So that's one of the ways in which they had human forms, but not yet human consciousnesses that would feel sympathy and pity or a feeling that we shouldn't be behaving like this. No? That comes at a slightly later stage of development.
Yeah. Do you know this Japanese book, Shogun?
Yeah.
This big book. There's a passage in it where one of the lords, he sat down for meditation, and in order to help his meditation, somebody was taken and was being tortured, and to those screams he was meditating. Personally, I didn't read the book beyond that.
It's too distressing, yes.
And I suppose that wasn't, the story was based in 14th, 15th century, I think.
So we know about the Romans, for instance. We admire them as great engineers and builders and, in a way, the founders of our European civilization. But they had those places where they threw the Christians to the lions, or they set people to fight each other to the death, you know. And they kept slaves and treated some of them very badly. So it's not so very long ago, a couple of thousand years. And it seems to have stretched quite far back in human history.
Sorry. After 8 months in Italy, I don't understand very well what
stage?
But I stay here to connect myself, okay?
Yes.
I would ask that about this fact, I don't understand very well. I feel, but maybe I'm wrong, like an atmosphere of a judgment.
Of
Judgment.
yes.
Or no. because this is animal creation, there is evolution, so everything is normal, or there is a judgment from Sri Aurobindo in this page?
I think that Sri Aurobindo, seeing things from our side, is feeling as he would expect us to feel, that such things are primitive and not really worthy of fully human beings. He's speaking about beings who have human forms, but who are not yet fully human.
But this is not normal in the evolution?
Of course, it's normal in evolution.
But he has also a judgment.
I don't know whether we can call it really a moral judgment, except that we would think if we see these kind of things happening today, then we judge it. And I remember when we were reading this book in the Sunday sessions, after the class, somebody came up to me and he said, but these things are happening today. And in a way that is true. But today, human consciousness does seem to have evolved a bit further, that we don't think it's normal if things like this happen. As perhaps a couple of thousands of years ago Europeans did. Does that answer your question? Does that answer your question?
I hope this is not a part too much of us.
No, this is about
I hope
yes. But the thing is that all these stages which he describes to us as we pass through Book 2, these all have been elements in our evolution, and to a certain extent the traces are still there. That's why we can recognize this. No? We can say, yes, we know this is a part of human history. This is maybe even today a part of human psychology. And that, of course, we are going up the ladder from the first evolution of life to more complex forms, and then to mental beings. But we've still got a long way to come to a more ideal sort of state.
In the book of yoga, it is told, that in our genes, these are all embedded. We are carrying all the time what the first primitive man was having. Still we are carrying it in us.
We're actually carrying the whole history of the physical universe in our own bodies. No? The stuff, the particles that we are made of, have been created in stars. And before there were stars, there were even more primitive, simple particles. So we can say in our essential existence as individuals, we've been through this whole history of the world, and we are developing, and Sri Aurobindo is pointing us towards a glorious future that at the moment we find it difficult to believe in, because we know we are carrying all this old stuff in us still. Will we really be able to overcome it? How is that going to happen?
I have pain here, and since a few days, so I started. I'm struggling for survival. It's this brain here.
Yeah.
That's the idea that came to me. I'm not struggling for food or
No.
but I'm struggling for a certain
Yes, because you have this pain here in this place, which is the reptilian brain,
Yes.
yeah, you feel your existence threatened.
Yes.
Hmm?
Yeah.
And in fact, that's so with many different kinds of pain. Physical pain, but also psychological pain. And then we react with this need to defend ourselves and even to go into attack mode. We find ourselves suddenly shouting at somebody without really knowing why. It's all these impulses which we're carrying within us, and that they come up.
So she asked about the judgment, but you have been repeating very often to remind us also that this is Ashwapati witnessing, and it's not the same thing, judgment as witnessing.
That's right. Ashwapati is witnessing all this, these stages that have happened in evolution. And that's a very important kind of knowledge which he is gaining and for his understanding of the world, and which Sri Aurobindo is sharing with us, as it's a very important knowledge for us to carry with us. And yes, Ashwapati sees it is Sri Aurobindo who has seen and experienced these things.
Shraddhavan, I want to tell something about the book of Savitri, Blue Book, when I give. Some French people I give, he never read really Savitri. When he discovered Saprem with Sri Aurobindo and Saprem, he reading, and suddenly he's incredible opening and
because they can read it in their own language, because they can read it in French.
Exactly.
Yes.
But now he's incredible. I am I give many people, not only in Savitri Bhavan, Shall give. You have 200.
So, but Saprem's translations have been available for quite some time, no?
Yeah.
And there have been other translations in French also have been available.
Yeah.
But now there's this very beautiful new book which has been put together by our old Aurovillian friend, Gérard Maréchal. He's designed it so beautifully that we have the English in one column and the French in another column on the same page. So we can really follow line by line, and it's a very handsome production, the whole thing. And he's being very generous about giving this to people who feel the need to read Savitri in French. No? It is Saprem's translation. There are several translations with their pluses and pros and cons.
I tell you something, Saprem Darshan 1948 with Sri Aurobindo. And I tell thank you, Sri Aurobindo. After 70 years, all of Aurobillian read both Sri Aurobindo and the mother language.
So shall we go on? Where did we stop? Yes, 455. Bhuvana, would you read?
An animal in the instinctive herd, pushed by life impulses, forced by common need. Each in his own kind saw his ego's plan. Also the aim and action of the man. Those like himself, by blood or custom kin, to him were parts of his life, his urgent selves, his personal nebulas, constituent stars, satellite companions of his solar eye.
This is still quite an important component of our human consciousness. Sri Aurobindo says this is still the animal stage, driven by instinct, driven by group instincts, a herd, pushed by life impulses. This is this feeling of needing to survive, needing to enjoy, forced by common needs. Actually, everybody would be happy to enjoy just himself, but because there are common needs, we come together in groups, in herds and packs. So all the people in the group serve the aim and action of the pack, like wolves or other grouping animals. Each in his own kind. Once he identifies himself with people, they are like me. So they see a reflection of themselves. This glass, it's the idea of a mirror. You're reflected in the glass. So that's me. We can feel sympathy for other human beings, know why they feel and do certain things. So those who are like himself, he considers them kin, members of his family, either because they're physically related to him by blood or by custom. There are some people who are not actually physically related to you, but you feel that they belong to your family. So those people, they belong, they are part of his life, his adjunct selves, as if they're something added on to oneself. There's somebody else, other people that are almost as important as oneself. Not entirely, but almost as important as oneself. So if something happens to your cousin whom you haven't seen for 15 years, but if he has a terrible accident, then you feel upset by that. If it's a total stranger, you might be shocked, but you don't feel upset in the same way as somebody you consider part of your own family. So Sri Aurobindo gives a nice image for that. He says his personal nebulas, constituent stars. So I myself am the center of the nebula, this cloud of many stars, people who I feel are related to me, connected to me. And of course, they're all focused on me. I'm the center. That's the feeling of the ego. Satellite companions of his solar eye. The ego is like the sun, and whoever's round about, naturally they're attracted and held in place around that solar eye.
But each one in the constituent feels the same way.
It may be like that, but in the next sentence he suggests that in each such grouping, there are some people who are more like leaders and others who are more like followers, and then there are even some people who don't fit in at all. Yeah. So Alice, you could read.
A master of his life's environment, a leader of a huddled human mass, herding for safety on a dangerous earth, he gathered them round him as if minor powers to make a common front against the world, or weak and soul on an indifferent earth as a fortress for his undefended heart, or else to heal his body's loneliness.
Right. So you may feel like a master, a leader, and you're the one in charge and you're the one who gives the orders. Master of his life's environment, a leader of this little mass of human beings who are surrounding you, like animals herding together for safety on this dangerous earth. So he gathers other people like himself around him as if minor powers. They are not as important as he is, but still they're useful in some way. And together they can make a common front against the world. Or maybe he's not like that. He feels not like a master and a leader at all, very weak, all alone, vulnerable on this indifferent earth. So then he likes to join a group for protection, as a fortress for his undefended heart, so that he doesn't have to face the whole world all by himself. Or people come together to heal the loneliness of the body. Our bodies have a habit of preferring groups to be with friends and family. So that's why people gather together. But also they have this feeling that the other people who are not part of their family or their group, they are enemies. Slava, would you read?
Yes. In others, then his kind, she stands before, and
alien,
an alien, unlike force, delusion, and fear, a stranger and observatory, and hate and slave, or
he lived as lives, yes.
Solitary breath. There were with all they brought his single faith.
Right. So in others then his kind, if he thinks they're different, if their skin is a different color, or if they speak a different language, or come from somewhere else, he's first of all fearful. He senses an enemy. Who is this stranger? No? It's an alien, unlike force. It's a different force from what he's used to. It seems something strange coming from outside, something dangerous. So he feels that such beings, such people, are strangers and adversaries, people he has to compete with and overcome, someone to hate, someone to slay, to kill. But just as some animals live in groups and some are more solitary, similarly with those early, more animal-like human beings, there were a few who lived alone, living like a solitary animal, a beast, at war with all. Then the whole universe is like an enemy. He has to be courageous and bear his single fate all alone. So there are animals like that, leopards perhaps, you know. They only come together to mate. Otherwise they live all alone, they have to hunt for themselves. They don't make friends. So sometimes we come across people, or we read about people who live like that, all alone, and survive somehow all alone. So I think we'll stop there for today. Yes. Or perhaps we can read just one more sentence, because it's the one that tells the difference. You read it. Absorbed in the present act.
Absorbed in the present act, the fleeting days, none thought to look beyond the hour's gains, or dreamed to make this earth a fairer world, or felt some touch divine surprise his heart.
So that's what they were like, absorbed in the present act. The days that just pass like this. None of them thinks of planning. They don't think what to do tomorrow or what will be a good thing to do next year. No? None thought to look beyond the hour's gains, whatever they can get from the present moment. None of them is beginning to dream that it might be possible to make this earth into a more beautiful and juster and happier place. None of them were able to feel any unexpected divine touch surprising their heart. That's the mark of a human being, that you may unexpectedly feel that divine touch coming. That's where we'll stop for today.
In walls of stone fenced round, they worked and warred. Did by a banded selfishness a small good, or wrought a dreadful wrong and cruel pain on sentient lives, and thought they did no ill. Ardent from the sack of happy, peaceful homes, and gorged with slaughter, plunder, rape, and fire, they made of human selves their helpless prey. A drove of captives led to lifelong woe, or torture a spectacle made and holiday, mocking or thrilled by their torn victims' pangs. Admiring themselves as titans and as gods, proudly they sang their high and glorious deeds, and praised their victory and their splendid force. An animal in the instinctive herd, pushed by life impulses, forced by common needs, each in his own kind saw his ego's glass. All served the aim and action of the pack. Those like himself, by blood or custom, kin, to him were parts of his life, his adjunct selves, his personal nebulas, constituent stars, satellite companions of his solar eye. A master of his life's environment, a leader of a huddled human mass herding for safety on a dangerous earth, he gathered them round him as if minor powers to make a common front against the world. Or weak and soul on an indifferent earth, as a fortress for his undefended heart, or else to heal his body's loneliness. In others than his kind he sensed a foe, an alien, unlike force to shun and fear, a stranger and adversary to hate and slay. Or he lived as lives the solitary brute. At war with all, he bore his single fate. Absorbed in the present act, the fleeting days, none thought to look beyond the hour's gains, or dreamed to make this earth a fairer world, or felt some touch divine surprise his heart.